next slide here, these are some of the things that we are seeing so commonly. There are people asking questions like as a help desk. I'm skipping over to the last one. And Erin, I'm going to ask you to give your personal take on that, because this is one of the very common scenarios. And one of the examples that Erin gives, I love that example of where people not feeling um, people not feeling
Oh, comfortable. Like people don't want sometimes to ask you questions. They don't want to feel like they're asking you what we'll call a stupid question. Even though we say there's no such thing as a stupid question, I think in our space, sometimes we do feel like that, especially if we've covered it 1,000 times. And let's say you just weren't listening. So people feel like, let me ask a chat bot this question because it's never going to get tired of me, versus let me ask someone else a more sophisticated question, which may be a better use of their time.
I remember when I was visiting a customer this was about 3 years ago to 2021, so 3 or 4 years ago. And somebody, they had hired a new person, and this was a pretty smart professional, and I'm sure that they were very, very well equipped to do their job and everything. And there was a VP of sales or service delivery, something like that. And they came in and asked the team member, oh, what was that copier code? Because they were just new, so they just wanted to know what was the copier code because they had to print some material. And the person said, they gave them copier code. Remember, I just told you that. And I'm sure they didn't mean any. I'm sure they didn't mean any disrespect or anything at all, right? But I mean, Erin, I don't know if you've seen such an example. What is somebody going to feel that, my goodness, I'm new here?
Well, yeah, I think there's a feeling of devalue maybe on both sides. The person who's new is very nervous to ask the question, and they're overwhelmed by, just onboarding and what's going on. And then the other person who's been here is just feeling like, of all the things that you're memorializing or all the things that were intended to cover, you've reduced the conversation to a print code. Like, what is going on? But then it goes back to, some of the things that we'll get into about extracting of data. If you look at the way that what you're feeding into, what your people in your company are feeding data into, when you're able to export that, you can look at point in time of, what are people struggling to find or understand? And then you can make those changes in the moment versus waiting for yearly surveys. I mean, this is like a phenomenon within our industry.
I mean, exactly what you said, that that it's is devaluing that experience on both sides, because somebody who's just new here, they feel uncomfortable asking. Somebody like, oh, uh we are banking on this person to revamp our entire service experience. The guy who cannot remember a print code and has to be told 6 times. Right, so
Yes.
you can even subconsciously have that feeling, and you're like, that's just not fair. And that person would much rather go to a chat, but what's the print code?
Yes.
6065. That was not the real print code, by the way, but so you go there, and I don't mind asking the chat bot on.
Yes.
And Aqua, I'm sure you have countless stories of when you are hiring new people in your organization, and they're being a government entity, when new people are joining. I'm sure that there are, similar, like Aaron said, no stupid questions, but they seem very silly or trivial in that moment, then they don't seem to be like, oh, it's not going to change the fundamental strategy, but they're important. That person needs it to do some core work here. It's not stupid at all, but it is a little bit trivial question that the human should not have been asking. And I'm sure it's there in some packet. The answer is not, oh, it should be there in some packet. I'm sure it's there, but what is a person supposed to do? Stop what they're doing and go through this 63-page PDF one by one to understand. Is that what we're asking them to do? Then that's going from stupid to stupider.
Absolutely.
So all that we've said, like we said, there's no trivial question, all right? So that's why the AI is there that's once you are able to, put in the prompt or go to the AI
Oh.
in terms of play it out with all the functions that you have, question that a person has, that system is there to help the person answer it or to, come to the person's aid. But like you said, there are some examples where, people walk into a new place and it's very difficult for them to even ask.
Mhm.
What you think that the question is, now difficult for them to ask. But and then it's helping people, you know. But as much as the AI is here, the human is also there. So the is there to complement the human. So those two are complements. They complement each other, you know.
I love that, exactly the point, that human is there. We're here to help. We're not there to. I want you to feel comfortable asking me, but at the same time, you may not feel comfortable. Like, it can also be a sensitive, and I've just to make it very, very, very concrete for everyone, that we're not discussing some theory of AI and HR or something. These are practical stuff. Like nowadays, all your Ask HR is just directly available to you. Whatever questions you have here, I hope you can all see my screen. I've gone away from the slide deck. Erin is a master of going away from the
Yeah.
script. We said we're not gonna done scripted.
Yeah.
Forget all this. This is just a free flowing conversation. I'm really much more interested in using the next 20 minutes just to ask, understand where
Yes,
everybody is, and that's much more valuable. But just to show us a
absolutely.
quick example here, rather than people saying, because somebody could also be a little sensitive to saying, hey, should I be asking the people what the laptop policy is? Are we allowed to spend? I mean, I really want this laptop, but it's $2,500. Is a limit 2,000? Is it 3,000? Is there no limit? I mean, I'm gonna feel a little bit cheap asking about this. I don't know, right? I would much rather just read through my 67-page PDF, but unfortunately,
Oh
I
my
don't have time, right? So that's where you are, and you say that's not a question for. That's exactly where AI and HR, as a very small example, and I think I want to frame this conversation as such that all of them, all of these little examples that we're going to be talk about, all of them should look like, oh, that's trivial, that's simple, that's trivial. Yes, I agree with you that all of them by individual nature, all of these use cases of AI and HR should be considered, oh, that's simple. And that's exactly what we want you to take away.
Mhm. I think it's
Yeah.
also two things as well. I think if we look within our field, a lot of times we have policies that don't align just because, we've evolved or we've grown or we just didn't have like a really good look at what was going on. And so as changes occur, AI allows us to make policy changes or updates to things that would have taken a year to do. You can do instantaneously. You can then put that, it's almost like it forces you to and allows you in an exciting fashion to get your desk tidy and get information clean and accurate so that when you go into, your chatting, that information is up to date and it's accurate. And so it just really it illumifies, what I would say your HR people operations department, because things that used to take us forever to do, create a 75-page document that takes you 10 minutes now. Before it would take you a quarter. And so being able to publish that just for a simple update or for editing, that's real time. Those are real time changes that execute real time value versus someone saying, I've been looking for this, but I can't find it. You're like, yeah, sorry, I'm updating it. Like you can say it's updated.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with the HR too, we have a lot of functions to play because the organization, for it to succeed, depends on the human. And so the HR function, we will have a lot to do. But with the in place now, we are able, like Erin said, we are able to, in 10 minutes, 10 to 10 minutes, you are done with one task and moving on to the other. And so it has really made us very effective. And, it's helping in a lot of ways to be very, very efficient in the work that we do.
Mhm.
Exactly. And I think this is this is important to consider a couple of different angles, that just because all the things that HR has to do, is such a wide variety of things that the HR is involved in, from culture to communication strategy to employee advocacy to to name whatever you would like. So some of these easier stuff, to give it to a chatbot, is super easy. It makes it easy also for the recipient, because they can say, hey, I'm going to ask chatbot this easy question, and if the chatbot gives me something like, hey, this is, and to the point, Erin, that you were making, not to go into the rabbit hole, but this rabbit hole is itself important, that there are so many times policies are contradicting each other. We come
Yes.
across customers and they'll say, hey, we started using Ask HR, except it's giving wrong information. I'm like, oh, okay, how exactly? And I'll say, well, it says that under this policy we have 8 days, and actually we have 9 days. Oh, I'm like, then I ask, I'm like, oh, I wonder how it got 8 days. So then if you recall, when you were just seeing the other screen, when it answers the question, it gives a reference where it picked it up from.
Absolutely.
So let's look through that reference. I say, oh, it's going from that document. That document is outdated. I'm like, yeah, okay. You know it's outdated.
Mhm.
The AI doesn't know it's outdated, and your employees don't know it's outdated. So if
Yes.
it's outdated, you have to change it. So in that sense, AI is an excellent quality tool, because it helps you maintain look for the contradictions within your own. And this is, frankly, that's that's to be expected. Once you have 50 documents that are all touching upon some relevant topics, it's not it is not that unexpected that the page number 78 of your employee handbook here contradicts the travel guides page 114. They are both talking about travel, and they have evolved at separate times, and they have a small discrepancy, and you have to decide which one you're going to update. And then in that sense, the AI is a wonderful tool for that. But there are many different use cases. I'm just going to name some, and I'm going to show you some examples so we can have conversation around it. And I'm cognizant of time, so I want to make sure that you guys have questions to ask. But a lot of different things I want to again say, they all are easy by itself. They all are easy by themselves. So a lot of times people are using just to say, hey, which PTO policy I should use. So I have this individual, this particular leave request. I don't know which policy I should use. If I use this policy, then this person is going to miss out on some of the paid time. But if I do use this policy, I'll be able to use what is the carryover that's left that's going to expire otherwise. So you have a lot of different considerations, and the system can look at all of them and give you a choice. It's kind of like Kayak of PTO policy, right? So you have 5 different choices. It says, hey, this is the best one, and you can still choose. Just like you still choose which final airline you're gonna fly with, you can still choose. But at least it gives you the guidance on saying, oh, this certainly that one's not good, but from these 7 policies that you have at your disposal, maybe these 2 or 3 are good, and then the person can still make that choice. Similarly, at the example that we already talked via the poll 1, candidate selection, the system can give a recommendation saying, hey, you have had 4 people interview this person. This is as good a match with the position as this thing is. This person seems to be an 83% match. You can look at your universe of candidates and look at all different considerations and be able to make your best guess here. When you have your team members, sometimes, especially for professional services organizations, this sometimes is a big thing on when do we initiate the hiring. AI can say, hey, when you start hiring, based on past data, it has taken you 53 days to fill that position. You have a position that's going to open up, and you're going to be missing out on revenue in 38 days.
Mhm.
If you don't open a position, you are actually at the risk of losing revenue.
Mhm.
You cannot wait for all the I's to be dotted and all the T's to be crossed before you do that, because then you'll miss 53 days of revenue. You're already going to miss 15 days. Maybe that's you can survive, or you can thrive with. But if you miss 53 days of revenue for this thing, then you are certainly not making progress. It's going to leave a lot of revenue behind. Similarly,
Time is
competence.
money, right?
Time is money for PSOs.
Yes.
Time is money for everybody else. Time is money, and for
Yes.
PSOs, for professional service organizations, time is money squared.
Mhm. Absolutely.
You're missing money, and on top of that, you're missing money.
But
So
this is where, where people were, when we looked at, I think, question 2, when people are like, they don't even know where to start. It's just identifying this type of information as business and use cases within your organization. It's speaking business, it's speaking metrics, it's identifying those numbers that you may not be familiar with. And it's not hypothetical or theoretical, it's very much accurate based on the company data that you have within your system. It's you identifying those things.
I'll give a very, very, very tangible example to people. I'll give like this an example that's the easiest one, and it is the one that I've seen often drives point home. This specific organization, they have about 360 people. It was their charter in 23 for every manager to give every employee some feedback once a month. That was their chart. And I'll tell you the number that had completed the end. But then this feature came around to be, in this feature, I don't know if you can see, but basically the idea is that the AI can help you draft a good feedback by you writing a couple of words on it, saying, hey, this is what it is. I'm really happy with how Ellen did that in this particular thing. And they would then, it would it would expand it and would do that. First time when I spoke to this organization, I said, this is there. And there was a big theoretical, philosophical, fun discussion in which I participated only by drinking coffee for 45 minutes on, oh, is this feedback really going to be genuine? A lot of people were talking. I didn't, it was their, ultimately we as a service provider have to be mindful on what we do because a lot of this is internal discussions. We are there, we are participating. And I said, okay, sure. So there was a very long theoretical discussion on is the feedback going to be really genuine because the AI generated it. Now the AI generated it, but you still have the option of making it tangible, giving it your own spin on it because you really know what to start with. AI is expanding by giving it some words and giving you some framework. And at the end result, I asked them, I said, okay, don't use AI. What is your completion rate? Completion rate was 11%. 11% of managers were able to give the feedback that they were being asked to give. I said, so, okay, you have the option of not doing the job at all, if we can use that phrase here, or you use the AI, and once they started using the AI, 43%, it's still not a majority, I think then you have to build there's a whole lot of culture that you still have to, still supplement it with. But 43% of people now able to complete their feedback. So at least they're giving feedback to the employees using some AI assisted technology. So would you not rather take that thing, hey, 40, and then you can build on success on top of that because now you can tell the managers saying, hey, Mark was able to complete this thing. Please help us how we can help you. So you can also join the ranks of the 43% who've been able to complete it. So sorry, Erin, you were going to say something.
No, I mean, this is huge. This is, it really supports that shift within talent that we're seeing, especially in performance management, where we all agree that, it's tough. Performance management is tough, but having a space like this to really memorialize feedback, help you write it, and then execute it allows for what we call continuous feedback, to where you're not waiting for that one time to have a discussion with someone. You're able to provide someone in a very easy fashion, because think about it, we're all on LinkedIn all the time. You're giving people feedback all the time, but how much are you directing that within your own organization? This allows you to continuously keep documented feedback associated with someone's expertise and what they've done. And then it helps you give someone more tangible feedback when that time comes, when it comes to, let's say, performance management. Gone are the days where people accept feedback or a review that just talks about the last month that they worked. And that it gets people out of your organization. This is a retention mechanism here that you're saying, which allows you as a leader also to keep track of accurate performance based on how you felt in the moment and you execute it. It's simple.
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
think,
And you know,
go ahead, Aqua. Yeah.
all right. So, and yeah, and with this system too is, you know, like Dr. Erin was saying, feedback is a continuous process. And so once they are able to give employees feedback, it will help the organization to know what is happening and then to also make strategic decisions in terms of the feedback that came in. All right. And so feedback is very important. And then I'm glad the Clay HR is very perfect to help in terms of feedback.
Yeah. Considering how important it is, in many managers still not finding the time or the drive to give that feedback is a real cultural problem that the organizations have to tackle with. And you should use every single tool that you have at your disposal to say, hey, I need these feedback numbers up in the 80s, in the 70s. That's where I need them to be, hopefully even in the 90s. And to be at 11% is just not where you want to be, because people need to know how they're doing. This is a recurring theme. Analyst after analyst, research after research, year after year, they'll all repeat that the employees want to hear on how well they're doing. And every time they hear, makes it very tangible for them on what is the effect, what's the impact of the work that they're doing. I want to show you another example. I'll skip the service just because we've already touched upon it. We've already talked a little bit about this thing. I'll mention another things here. Another very simple thing here. Many times organizations will come up with another thing that many organizations will do is these learnings. Now, using learning, that's a great thing. People will say, okay, hey, I was given this particular material, whether it's a video or a PowerPoint or a PDF or whatever, or sequence of PDFs. I've gone through it, but there weren't enough checkpoints in it to help me concretize it to my own role here. And AI can help you do that. It says, okay, you want to generate some questions to make it interactive for the people. Now, if you have all the time, you say, okay, I'm going to take the next week off, off from everything else I'm doing, go through these learning PDFs, learning resources, and generate a 10 question. If you have the time, then, my hat's off to you. But if you don't, then the AI is right there to generate the questions for you. Generate the questions for you. You see how many questions you want to generate, and then you have it. Then it'll basically be, you can break down these touch points into one after another, or because again, we all learn. There's that webinar on learning that explains that we all learn not just by reading, but by saying out loud and by repeating it or by answering it, by interacting. This is how we all learn. This is just the human nature of learning. That starts when we're 2 years old and somebody just tells you the light switch is on and the switch is off. I'm like, oh yeah, you tell me. I'm gonna switch it on myself to see if what you're saying me is true. And you trust me, I'm gonna, if you've seen that baby play on that, you're gonna see the baby's gonna try that 17 times to say, oh yeah, I do that, it does go on, and I switch it off and it does go off. You did it once, why are you trying it 17 times? They're gonna do it 17 times, right? You just told them, so this is just how it is. So again, anything in learning, I know it's such a hot topic for you, Erin. You mentioned it, but this is just again, every help that you can take from the AI, we should take it.
Absolutely. One of the other cool things, I don't want to take up too much time, is, when you start to harvest data in one system, in one place, it amazes you because you can take that data and do so many different things with it. So let's say you're looking at, what the chatbot is saying that people are asking for. You're looking at stop gaps in trying to identify how you can, really level up your expertise in communicating with your organization. You can look at questions like this and say, okay, this is the job that we need, but based on the feedback that I've given someone, you can cross-reference and say, when I later choose to hire someone to replace this person, what type of technical skills were missing based on the feedback and conversations I was having with this person? And then you can create those questions here so that you can make sure you're identifying the right candidate with the right skills. And so these are the things that what you would probably never think of, because the time that it's taking you to do your work, that would just feel like it's so down the line, versus now you have that expertise. You're able to figure that out in less than 30 minutes.
Exactly. And I think on that point, if I skip over a little bit to here, the same exact question and answer mechanism, we are so used to now being everybody who has done an interview, how many times it has happened to us, we're going to an interview and we haven't had a chance to review. We haven't a chance to review who this candidate is that's coming into it, because we were in meetings back to back. And then, or even if we did review, that was reviewed when 4 days ago, when it was told to us that, hey, we have to be in the interview. That's the time I reviewed it. I don't know now who Christopher is. So at this point, I don't recall. And then when the AI can present this nice summary for you, right? And then say, oh, this is oh yeah, okay, that's great. Then you can put everything together, what you nicely filed into your memory in your brain, that saying, oh, this was, now you can bring it all back. And then if the AI can tell you, oh, this person's coming in for such a position, these are the questions that you can ask them. So you can say, okay, hey, I'm gonna ask the questions I want to ask. Don't worry, I got it. But at least you have a starting point here. What would be pretty bad is that AI doesn't give you anything, and you are also a topic, and then what are you going to discuss? The weather? And and that's not where you want to end up at. So if the AI gives you, this is a candidate, you're starting an interview in 10 minutes. These are some starting questions here. I don't know, Aqua. I mean, if every organization, everything that I've seen everywhere, it's such a critical problem for people.
Yes, and like you said, initially, before this AI and everything came in, you'd have to review the document, and there were times that, in fact, you won't get time because probably days before you had other meetings, you had other work to do and all that. So you get to the interview room, and what happens there is, well, you sometimes you don't have an idea of the perfect candidate you're looking for. But with the AI, the organization already have an idea of the perfect candidate they're looking for. And the AI will help you to, in terms of recruitment and screening, to get the best candidate, the AI will help you to determine who is the best fit as per what you have generated from the AI. And with the questions to there are different types of questions, interview questions. We have the behavioral, and a whole lot of others. And so this same AI will help you to come up with the questions, the type of questions you really want to ask the candidates, And so the AI has really helped in so many ways, if you ask me.
A very quick example, and I know our examples, we have been very, very, very liberal with the time here, but I'll share with you one very quick example. There's a bank in the local DC area, local here to us, and the bank had this situation. This was an internal posting, by the way. The candidate was in HR, moving to marketing, and applied to a position internally within the company to marketing. And because of this resume, because of the summary feature, what I later heard from the HR was that the summary feature was so critical to them that when the interviewer saw the summary in Clay HR, they were able to say, hey, all the questions that I have prepared for a marketing professional are not appropriate for this person. This person is clearly saying they do not have a background in marketing. I can sure ask them 7 questions that I've prepared on marketing, humiliate them 7 times, saying, no, I don't really know that. No, I don't know that. And no, I don't know that. And no, I don't know that. And no, I don't know that. I know some of you are getting uncomfortable because I've said, no, I don't know that 5 times, but just imagine as an actual candidate having to say that in a real circumstance 7 times. Here, I'm just a webinar host saying to you, no, I don't know that 5 times, and many of you are squirming in your seats. But so in sometimes AI can be far more, helpful, saying that, hey, the person's coming from HR. Why don't you ask them the questions that can help you judge what they're going to be able to do? But the usual questions that you prepared, maybe they're not useful. So again, I know there's always a lot to do, and I think the conversational chatbot for candidates is another example. Sometimes candidates even more so than new employees. A new employee is going to feel hesitant. A candidate is going to feel 10 times more hesitant. I mean, I'm joining this very fancy organization with very fancy culture, and I'm being offered very fancy package, and I'm going to make a lot of impact. Is it okay if I ask about parking? I mean, should you feel comfortable? Is that, and some people say, yeah, hey, it's a meaningful question. Why don't you ask? People say, well, if I have an opportunity to ask a machine, so much easier for me. I'll just ask. Then you see that there's a much lesser silly questions here, and you can have this, you can have a little bit more, relaxed conversation, because you're not talking to somebody at the high level. Again, I know we are just at time here. I'm going to stop sharing, but I just want to see if we can take on a few questions here. At least we can see here. So let me see if they are. Thank you, Tara. I see your message saying that you can see the screen. Thank you. I saw it much later. Okay, Samuel is asking about, do we provide time clocks? Well, I mean, for time clocks, etc., because we didn't cover it today, just welcome to go to our website. The time clocks are included part of the workforce management. You can buy them. You can talk to your customer success manager. They can answer that. So I'm just going to go to more AI related question here. Okay, so practicality of Ask HR. They have an in-house HR system that works, but it doesn't offer something similar. Well, I mean, I'll let Erin answer, because Erin had a very similar circumstance for Ask HR. So I'll just let.
Yes. So for me personally, I'm a CPO at True America Multifamily. And so what we did first is we have a relationship with Clay HR, and we renamed her Ask Coco. And so we actually use it, and it's integrated within UKG Ready. And so that's the way that we use it. I also work as a fractional CPO, and I have 2 other clients that are on ADP Run and ADP Workforce Now that we're integrating Clay HR with, just because a lot of whether it's medium or small, whatever your situation is, may not have the platform specifics to whether it's warehouse data to where it's manageable and it makes sense, so people have to kind of dig for it, or they don't have what we would say like a baseline person that you would go to that's designated. And so these type of spaces just work better. So absolutely.
Yeah, and I think as a clarification point, I mean, as Clay HR, our loyalty is to the CPO, to the CHRO. Whatever solution you're currently using, if it's working fine for you, keep it as it is, right? It's really whatever you need to do to create your ecosystem. And if Ask HR is that missing piece that you need here, use it. Use it for saying, hey, I'm going to use this primarily as acting as my as your HR assistant here. And Erin, there is there's another question for you. How does a digital onboarding assistant work? I think maybe in the webinar prior, maybe somebody had mentioned something. Do you want to just talk about that?
Probably. So I guess that I would need more, Jennifer, on specifically, is it more so when you're looking at the onboarding assistant, are you looking at it as the bot, the agent, or more so like onboarding within Clay HR?
So within Clay HR, there is I can address maybe part of that. There is an onboarding assistant that you can create. The onboarding assistant will basically talk you through your checklist, and whatever you have completed, they'll say, okay, well, this is the next item. So it makes it more conversational, as well as there are agents that you can create inside Claychar, which can say it's a well-being agent that you can kind of, it will go through it, or you can have kind of an exit interview agent. There are all those agents that you can create. And I think Rita has a point. I'm just gonna take it, I don't think it's a question, but I think AI is just apps or software that will enable us to work effectively. Please, can we be specific to the tools? Help us to do, I don't know, Erin, if
Which
you
one is
can.
it?
The last one, I believe that's the last one.
I am in the view of AI. We're currently, okay. I'm in the view of AI. It's just apps or software that will enable, so please can we see some tools like Claychar? So Rita, what I would say is this, I think that we're starting to see, like, let's just use that you have like your core HRIS system. And I think a lot of us are kind of stuck with, for now, the HR system that we have because we've invested so timely in it. And so what I'm suggesting as far as like how to get familiar and like wrap your arms around it, for what I would say low cost, high value is, let's say that you then start to incorporate Clay HR. You start to say, okay, I'm going to use Clay HR first for just the bot feature. And then you can start customizing, and then you can start to see within the environment, what are other options that I have? And then you could start reducing your need or use within other systems that you may have utilize it for, whether it's on onboarding, whatever, because you can start to see the seamless integration as it speaks to your core HRS system. So maybe all of the, what I call the Cadillac features that you had with your core HRS system, you'll become less reliable on it because it doesn't have those integrated optionalities like Clay HR does. Now, when you talk about specific tools, that you can utilize, let's say whether it's outside of Clay HR, you can just consider, like, how do you get familiar with, let's say, ChatGPT? How do you start to create workflows or work models within the other GPTs that it's associated with? And then you start getting towards outside of the isolated usage, other type of system integrations or relationships that allow for all of these functionalities to speak together.
Right. And Rita, since I'm familiar with your own environment there, and I think that's your CSM probably will address to you that as well. There are conversational agents that you can create within Claychar that I'll have them speak to you about. But one more question, I think let's just limit to one, just because I'm sure people have other meetings to go to. I think one other person asks that we're currently using Workday, performance review works fine, the skill matrix. I think that sorry, let me repeat the question first, but the skill matrix does not work fine for our managers. How can we use that functionality in Claychar? That's a common scenario that we often come to. Many times people who have invested in Workday, they will often find that they are using Claychar for managing their skill matrix for managers. So I have stopped sharing, but if I can just quickly share that again, essentially what people will do is they'll create their create their skill matrix inside Claychar. Let me just share my screen again. And that's how they will be able to maximize the investment of time that they have already made and of the skill. So all the sorry, let me go back here. Let me see if I can have to log in again here.
While Amber is getting that ready, what I've done is I've copied out all the questions from today. And so what I'll do is tag everyone in the original post so that we can answer your questions.
Okay. So I'm not able to show that here. Let me see if I have another environment up here where I can show. So anyway, this is what I wanted you to see here. This is my other environment. This may not have all the right matrix configuration set up, but this will at least give you some idea on, yeah, okay, this is good enough. So essentially what we see is a lot of times people will use the matrix view here inside Claychar, where all the managers are going in to show all their team members and all the competencies that those members have access to. So they that are assigned to those. So this view is called the matrix view, and that's exactly what we call in Claychar as well. We call that as a view here. And you create that as a view and you assign that to the managers. So all the managers will come in and they will dynamically see their team members and their those team members' corresponding skills. So that makes it very, very, very useful for a lot of managers because they'll have, so like you can imagine if you have a marketing manager, they have 6 different marketing analysts in their team. They're going to see 6 people here, all the marketing skills on the top, and they're going to be able to see exactly where people need to go. and what exact trainings they should get, how exactly they should be addressing that. And a similar view they can get on the performance potential matrix, when managers can kind of see where exactly, and you can set this up in this demo environment, this set it up as a 2x2, but you can set it up as a 2x2, 3x3. You can do all of that in your environment. But this is exactly one of the ways that we see a lot of times people are using to supplement their their investment. So now I'm cognizant of time. We will wrap up here today. But Erin was taking down all the questions. Again, we'll try to do this part here. Thank you, Gabriela. Happy to have been able to answer. So thank you, everyone, for taking the time from your busy schedule here. You're welcome to connect with either of us on LinkedIn. Many of you are already connected. I'm familiar. Saw already familiar faces here, but please connect with Erin, Aqua. Again, I'm so pleased, Erin. I'm so pleased, Aqua, that we had a chance to do this briefing together. It was really a pleasure here.
Nice to see both of you. Thank you for the
Thanks.
opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you, everyone. Have
It's
a good
really a pleasure. And then thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the day, rest of the afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Thank you. Have a great one. Okay. Bye.